To finger knit your pillow, you're going to need 2 skeins of your color, a scissors, and a lighter to connect the 2 skeins. To start, you need to make your first knot. I usually start by making a cross over 2 fingers, pinch through to make your first loop. And when you do that, you don't want your loop too big, but you also don't want it too small. And making sure you don't make your knot too tight, because you will need to stitch through that last loop there. So you're going to go ahead and start to make your first chain by grabbing through that first loop, and that is considered one loop. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to work towards my right as I get going. So you're going to grab through, pinch, and try to make all your loops the same size, and this is going to be your first chain. So you'll keep going down, and depending on the size of pillow that you're going to use is how you want to go across the length of the pillow from one side to the other side of the pillow, but not wrapping around. When you do a few chains, you're going to go ahead and measure your pillow to your chain, so you know how long of a chain you're going to do before you start your next row. And this is considered row 1. The other thing I like to do is kind of stretch out all my chains at the beginning, because you want them all the same. I usually measure by doing 2 fingers or a thumb, but before I do my next row, I tend to stretch them out a little bit. And you go ahead and lay it across. I still need to do a few more chains, so probably a couple more and I'll be good there. And I don't really do any counting. I just measure per pillow, because every pillow is a little bit different when you buy a pillow from the store. And that's about right. That might be actually a little bit too big, but that's okay. Now to start the next one, I don't do any stopping. I'm going to go all the way around just to kind of show you. I'm going to go on both sides of this chain, so there's no seam at the bottom. But because I'm right-handed, I tend to always work right to left, but this is going to be a continual pillow without any seams. So you're going to take that first one, skip that first loop so it doesn't undo it, stick your finger under the top of the loop going to the left, and you're just going to grab it, pull through, and try to make the same size loops. So I just stick a finger in. Sometimes they're tight, it's okay. Stick a finger in, you grab it, pull through, and you're going to go all the way to the end of the chain. Again, I don't really do any counting. I keep them all the same depending on what size pillow I'm going to do. And you're going to include that last chain at the bottom. When you get to the end, you are going to find that very last chain that you did with the knot. That is when you're going to go through, so it might be a little tighter. Again, that's why you don't make your slip knot really tight at the beginning. You're going to go ahead and pull one through. Now, to go across the other side, some people just go from left to right. I actually flip mine over because I like to personally knit from right to left because I'm right-handed. So you just flip it over, put your yarn on the other side, and you're going to continue on as you did before. If you want to just go across the bottom and go left or right, you can, but you're just going to go through those top loops. So you're going to make even numbers. At the end of this step, you're going to have loops directly across from each other in an equal amount. So you're going to pull through and put that little loop up at the top, trying to make sure they're all the same size as you go across. When you get to the last one, pull that last loop through, and what you should find is you should have equal amounts top and bottom, and you want all the loops to be about the same. You don't have to worry that it's kind of curving, it'll work itself out, but I try to just make sure there's one loop on top of the other all the way across and ending in that one little tail, which will eventually be on the inside because you're going to turn it inside out, and you can worry about that later. So you're going to want to go to that first loop that you did before. You can either work left to right. Again, for me, I flip mine over and I work from my right and I go to the left. And when I flip it over, you just kind of want to make sure you're going to go into the right loop, and you'll be the first loop that you started with when you first started this top and bottom. You're just going to go through that first loop, grab it, pull through. Again, trying to make sure all your loops are about the same size. When I pull through, I usually do about a thumb width of my loop. Sometimes people do 2 fingers. I try to keep mine kind of tight so you don't feel and see the pillow between the stitches at the end of all of your loops. You're just going to go through every loop, and then you're going to go around in a circle. So you're not going to stop. You're going to do a continual all the way around. And again, I flip mine over. So when I get to the bottom of my first row, this is row 2 of all of your loops, technically row 3, but I call it row 2. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to work right to left. Eventually, you're going to go inside out, but I usually wait till I get to about 3 or 4 rows. I just kind of, when it starts to form is when I turn it inside out. You're going to go all the way across the bottom until you get to the end. When I get to the end, I just kind of flip it over again. This is about where I feel like I could turn it inside out. Sometimes you could do one more row. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, tuck the tail on the inside. I'm going to continue to work right to left, but I'm going to flip it inside out now, so my pillow will be the inside out look rather than the other way. You do not have to do this. I just like the way it looks, and it tucks that tail in. So I'm still going to work on that top row. I'm going to work right to left. You just want to make sure all your loops are straight up and down. You pinch through the loop, pull through. You want to make them about thumb size or finger size so your loops aren't too big. And you're going to continue this pattern until you want to either make a design or until the end of the pillow. I'm going to go ahead and make a 1 rope design in this pillow, which I will show you as I get to that. I don't measure it. I just pick a spot where I want it and I go from there. Again, working from my right to the left. And at this point, as you can see, I'm at the bottom because I'm going to stay on that first row that I was doing. It looks like I'm on the bottom, but I am still working right to left, and you're just going to go around in a circle the entire time so there are no seams. As you can see, the longer you go around in a circle, the edges are going to start to curve up, and those are going to be the corners of your pillow. It's going to happen naturally. I do want to say, as you're going around the corners, you want to make sure the tops and the bottoms, when you first started, you want to make sure that they are evenly, the tightness is even. You do want to connect those corners so that it will continue to roll up like a pillow perfectly for those corners. You don't want to make those corner ones loops too large. Again, keeping the loops consistent, that will help keep this pillow forming. It will eventually go up and you can fold the pillow in half as you go. Every so often, you want to take your pillow, put it into the form, make sure you like where those corners are. This is probably bigger by one loop, but I'm going to continue and keep going up. This is probably one loop bigger than what I would like to do. In the future, I'll go one loop smaller. But as you continue to go around, you're going to be able to fold this in half and work around that way, or you can keep it a big circle. I usually fold it in half as I go. It just makes my working space smaller and more manageable. But again, I work right to left, pulling up the loop, pinch through, pull through, about a thumb, a finger width, and I go all the way around in a circle. Again, keeping my corners nice and tight, every so often rechecking my pillow size. I'm going to recheck the pillow size here just to make sure the corners are fitting nicely. And I'm also going to put a design on this pillow. So I'm just checking to see where do I want that design. I'm going to do a front loop for 2 rows on this, making kind of a rope look on this pillow. So I'm just checking to see where do I want that on this pillow itself. Now I'm going to put my design, I'm going to do 2 rows where I'm going from the outside of my pillow, and it's going to look like I have a rope going down the pillow. You do not have to do this. I just thought I would do one side of the pillow like that. Rather than going from the back of the loop, I'm going to put my yarn on top. I'm going to go from the front of the loop. It's still the same process. You're going to poke from the corner, so it's just on one side. You're going to poke through one loop and just pull it on the other side, keeping your loops the same. And you can go all the way around the pillow. You don't have to do this. You can do as many rows as you want. But by going front to back, you're going to create a rope look. So at the end, you'll be able to see I'm going to do 2 rows of this only on the front of the pillow. So it's kind of like a decoration. Some people skip every other. You can kind of play around with it. Again, you do not have to do this. I'm only going one corner to the next. And when I get to the other side, I'm going to go ahead and go back to front again so the back of the pillow does not have the rope. As I get near the end of the corner, this is the front of my pillow, I'm getting to the corner. What I'm going to do is I start to flip it over. I'm going to do one last stitch front to back, and when I flip it over, I'm going to go back to the original, back to front, so the back side of my pillow does not have that rope ribbon decoration. And I'm just going to continue, and I'm going to go from the back of the loop, pull it forward so it's nice and flat on the back side of my pillow. When I get to the end, I'm going to go ahead and do one more row of my rope look, and I'm going to go front to back. Okay, now I'm flipping over again. I'm going to do one more row of my decoration where I'm going to go front to back. So it's going to make one more of that rope look on the front of my pillow. I'm just going to do this 2 rows of it this way and go back and finish the rest of the pillow all with the same stitch so it's nice and flat. And again, I'm going to go from the front, pull through the loop, and just pinch about a thumb size all the way across the front. Now that I'm done with my 2 rows of that rope look, I'm just going to flip it over. I'm going to finish the rest of this pillow back to front and going all the way around. I work from the right to the left. Every so often, I'm going to measure that pillow and decide where I want to end. I'll see you at the end. Just continue around, going back to front through all the loops, all the way around, till you measure the pillow where it fits perfectly in, and we'll show you how to close off at the end. When you get the pillow and you insert it in, you're getting near, where it's almost to the end of the pillow. You need to gently stuff it in so you don't undo some of the loops that you made. You're going to put the corners in, and then you're going to kind of pinch over the top to see how many rows. With this one here, I need about maybe 2 more rows that I'm going to make. Some people leave the pillow in and you can continue to stitch. I usually take it out and I guesstimate about 2 or 3 more rows, and then I'll put the pillow back in and I'll finish it that way. Once you've got your pillow in and you're going to seal it off, that last loop, you can go ahead and pull your yarn through, tie it off with a knot. And then what you're going to do is you want to kind of take each loop on each side, back and forth of each other, and you're going to thread it through after you cut your yarn off. I usually take the yarn and I go through each one, pulling so that it cinches it shut, but not so tight, because at the very end, even though there's a little gap that you can see between each one, you're going to go back through after the whole pillow is shut, and you're going to weave in, and so you can close all those little gaps. So you're just going to initially take one loop from each side and thread the yarn through from one side into the other. When you get to the end, you'll have an extra tail. I just kind of thread it through. If you see any white pillow in there, thread it through, go all the way across. The very end, whatever I have left over, I just tuck it into the pillow and leave it in there. That way if you wash it or anything, nothing will come apart. You can go ahead and wash this. I usually do gentle cycle on cold, and I dry it tumble dry low, and it turns out great. Nothing will happen. I hope you enjoy your pillow.